Happy St George's Day! It beats me why we celebrate the life of a Greek that was born in modern-day Turkey in Cappadocia, who was a high-ranking official in the Roman army, lived in Malta and couldn't speak a word of English. But that's not the point. We're celebrating English wines today. So we have three interesting sparkling wines to get through. Unfortunately, because of the horsemen of the apocalypse and everything that's going on, there was a wine I've been desperately trying to get hold of all day, couldn't get it, jumped in the car, went to Waitrose, had to get another one. But hopefully we'll feature that in another episode. I was trying to get a bottle of Hambledon from Hampshire, but at least one of these wines has Hampshire fruit in it. In fact, if anything, the story is even more interesting. So, right, we've got three wines here, all sparklings, kind of showing best foot forward what England's doing. First one's Kingscote. Now, Kingscote is a rosé from, I think it's just about East Sussex. It's very near East Grinstead, stone's throw from them. In fact, there's a railway train called the Bluebell Line that actually stops in Kingscote, I think. But these things are becoming more and more important, going to places which you can actually visit and experience and have the immersive experience of being in a vineyard and smelling the vines and having people show you around, maybe having cheese, drinking the wines in the vineyard. You can't beat that. It's incomparable. And that's something that Kingscote does very, very well. They do a white as well. It's just I happen to particularly like the pink at the moment. The other thing is, I don't know if you heard when I pulled the cork out, it kind of sounds different when you pull the cork out. And the reason is, this wine is made the same way Prosecco is made. This is designed to be a lot less serious, maybe lower in acid, easier drinking, more frivolous, but also as a result of that, being made using the Charmat process, which I mentioned and explained in a show last week. It means that there's a bit more for everybody, if you know what I mean. It's a bit cheaper to the customer, it's a bit cheaper to the pub that buys it, cheaper to the distributor, everything else. So because it's a less expensive and less contorted way of making sparkling wine, but not an unpleasant one, as everyone will agree. I mean, if I was to pretend that I didn't drink Prosecco, that would be a lie. Sometimes when you stagger off the train at Clapham Junction and Sainsbury's is the only place open at 1 a.m, then Prosecco is what you got. So anyway, it's pink in colour. The pinkness is quite nice. That kind of doesn't mean anything in essence, but the pinkness is there because there is a variety in this wine that's a red variety. Otherwise, this wine would be white. It's made from Bacchus. I will dedicate a show to Bacchus later on, but it's England's variety, or is certainly becoming that way. And there are some extraordinarily good examples, including one from Kingscote, which will probably feature. But even in Norfolk, there's some stunning white wines being made from vineyards over 50 years old. And Bacchus is our kind of what Pinotage is to South Africa, what Carmenere is to Chile, what Malbec is to Argentina, sort of. Bacchus is our white wine, and I think it's going places. So it's not just all about sparkling, the story in the UK. And because of global warming, it's getting warm enough to actually grow some half-decent red these days. But this wine is made from Bacchus, it's made from Pinot Meunier, it's made from Chardonnay, which are varieties you normally see in a sparkling wine. But it's also got a variety in it called Regent, or Regent. Regent is a grape variety which is unusual in that it's a part of a group of grape varieties called Tanturier varieties, or Tanturier varieties. When you peel the skin off the grape, it's red inside. It's got red flesh. There's a lot of these varieties knocking about in England because it's not really sunny enough to ripen the skin to make a decent red. So if the juice is already red, it's a head start. Problem is, most of them are a bit whack. They're a bit shit, to be honest. But Regent, Ronda, Triomphe d'Alsace have all had their successes here and there. Anyway, let's try this. Damn easy to drink, crikey. Let's drop a lager, money can buy that. Very, very good. There are quite a lot of Charmats cropping up around England because it means you can produce them very quickly. You produce the grapes, then you make a wine. Within 6 months of harvest, you can actually make a wine, where it's a very laborious and long process making wine using the traditional or champagne method, which is most of them. It can take as much as 5 years. And I think you'll see an explosion of this style of wine. It also means that this wine is kind of 17 to 19 pounds, not 30 to 40, which is great. Okay, so wine number 1, Kingscote Pink Fizz. Number 2, this is from Tesco's, surprise, surprise, but this is a real winner. Everyone's been raving about this, not just me. It's made in an estate down in Kent called Heath. Richard Balfour-Lynn, I think, is the owner of the estate, but he also uses the mind of a guy that kind of pioneered the whole thing. There are one or two people, Mr. Skelton and Michael Hall, is it Michael Hall? And there's a guy called Owen Elias who started Chapel Down back in the day, and he's now making wine here. And you can't really write the story of English sparkling wine without talking about him. He's been making very good wine for a long time, and has always been there or thereabouts, and is one of the most senior lecturers in this country. Oh, that's better. That's a soft pop. I didn't pop the other one nearly as well. So this wine is a Heath sparkling, remarkably smooth and soft. Some English sparklings can be quite abrasive and high in acid. This one isn't. This is lovely and creamy, and when you smell it, it smells like a dozen really well-known champagnes I can mention. It's soft apple fool, hint of roses and rose hips. There's something English garden about it. See, that's really, really good wine. And because it's supermarket own label, superly well priced as well. This wine's, I think, £18 on their website. Look at the details below. I think as it grows, price might even come down on that. And this other wine is, I think, 19 quid at the moment. It's £20 or £19 in Tesco's, which is laughably good. But it says Tesco's on the label, but if you don't mind that, that's right. Very, very enjoyable, especially on a day like today. The last one, this was picked up about 10 minutes ago from Waitrose and quickly chucked in the freezer. This is Digby Leander Rosé. Now, I picked this because I judge a wine competition called the International Wine Challenge, and I remember this wine got a gold medal last year. I remember being particularly enthusiastic about it and saying, I better write that number down and see what the wine is later, because I'm really keen on that. And you'll notice it's a pink. There we go. In fact, it even says International Wine Challenge on it. But Leander Club, which is the most elite and most successful rowing club in the world of all time, it's based in Henley. Digby, the estate itself, I think is in West Sussex, or at least they're based in Arundel. Another beautiful place. Gorgeous, gorgeous castle, amazing library. But this wine is made mostly from Pinot Noir, and there's Pinot Meunier, chuck of Chardonnay in there as well. And it's made by a young man. I say young man, he's sort of younger than me, but that doesn't necessarily make him young, does it? It's Dermot Segru. Dermot is a crazy Irishman. He's extremely charming, very talented winemaker, fantastic value, great fun to be around. And Dermot actually cut his teeth post getting a degree at Plumpton College in the South Downs, not far from where he's making wine now. He cut his teeth at Léoville Barton, one of the absolutely tip-top red wines of the world. So he knows a thing or two about making decent Bordeaux as well. So this wine, what I like about it is it's a rosé, but it's not a vintage rosé. A lot of wines in this country are vintaged, but the characteristics of one vintage from another are so drastically different that means you're basically getting a range of wines, and then none of them have really got any consistency. You want non-vintage because it's non-vintage means multiple vintage. It means this wine was probably made, this is what now, 2020, probably made from wines in 2019, possibly 2018 and 17 and maybe 16. So it's a blend across vintages which have different characteristics, creating some consistency. And also it creates layering. In a wine which is very, very high in acid, which English sparkling is, it gives it texture and makes it much grander, much more serious. That's where the secret for England competing against erstwhile champagne and other sparkling wines around the world that are very, very fancy, and often beating them hands down. So anyway, wine smells lovely. It's got slightly gunflint smokiness. It's almost like somebody struck a match, which sounds odd, but that's nice. I kind of like the smell of a match being lit, because I think a cigar's coming, probably. Lovely layers, and because it's multi-vintage, I've got some freshness, some tight cranberry fruit at the front. I've got some lovely bletted, it's an old Shakespearean word for sort of slightly overripe quincy characters as well. Delicious wine. That cost me 30 quid. It'd probably cost you a few bob more if you go to an independent. But we've got a wine here, 17, 18 quid. We've got a wine here at £19. We've got a wine here at 30 odd pounds. They're all great wines and are in a sea of excellent wines being made in this country. So go out there, support your local vineyard. It's very important in these particularly difficult times as well. Cheers. See you next time.